Flax is the world's oldest known fibre, and during the last 2 centuries, the north of Ireland became strongly associated with flax and the linen industry. By the early part of the 20th century, most farmers around the Garva area were involved one way or another, and were justifiably proud of the world-famous Irish linen label. Production was at its peak during the war years, and the Agithy rivers had a large number of water-driven mills, mainly involved in the various stages of linen production. Indeed, there were few people in the farming community who were not involved to some extent in the linen industry. The introduction of man-made fibre plants during the late 1950s began to spell the end of flax growing, and by the early 1960s it had ceased to exist completely in this area. Back at the flax field, the blossom has now appeared. It is the 2nd of August, and although this blue blanket is a pretty sight, it will still be 2 or 3 weeks before harvesting. Good warm dry weather would now be essential so that the crop would ripen and remain standing. About the middle of the month, Sandy cuts the rushes, which will be left for a while. These will be made into bands for binding the bundles of flax. Sandy Moody gives a demonstration of making a rush band. The harvest weather which Tom had hoped for did not come, as the end of August again brought rain and wind. On the 1st of September, the men decided to start pulling the flax. Unlike oats or barley, flax had to be pulled from the ground rather than cut, as some of the valuable fibre was growing under the surface. The bundles of flax were tied. These were called beats, and 12 beats made a stook. During the 50s, people who pulled the flax were paid by how many stooks they had pulled. The rate of pay was about 2 shillings a stook, 10 pence in today's money. Pulling flax was back-breaking work and most unpleasant during wet weather. However, there was never any shortage of workers, as men and women would have done 3 or 4 hours pulling in the evenings. The extra money always came in useful, as back-to-school time was not far away. The attraction of this unique event just outside the village of Garva was to Tom's advantage, for every evening a good crowd gathered, keen to show their skill at flax pulling. Men like 82-year-old David Gregg, who had travelled the 22 miles from Ballymena. Tom did not discourage anyone, and said that he wouldn't mind paying the going rate of 2 shillings a stook for pulling. One big disadvantage was that the long, clear summer evenings had gone, and it was now beginning to get dark at 7:30. But his biggest battle by far was still with the weather, and many evenings no flax at all was pulled.